thank you for volunteering to run the camera during Sunday service. Let's dive right into a quick rundown of the camera and its basic features. The camera isn't fragile, but just be careful because it's a very expensive and important piece of equipment. On the back left of the camera is the power switch. On the top right of the camera is the zoom function. You'll want to zoom all the way in when capturing individuals and out a little for the choir. The preview screen is exactly what people online will see. You can adjust the camera by slightly loosening the vertical movement lock or horizontal movement lock on the tripod. You'll mostly use horizontal movement. And you'll do that with the movement handle. It works to adjust one axis at a time instead of diagonal camera movement. The tripod legs can be adjusted to help square the shot. I'll generally have done this already by the time you arrive. The tripod also has a built-in leveler, but you shouldn't need it. Your camera will be the main camera angle. You'll want to follow the action happening in the front of the church. The other angles are used to hide the movement of the main camera angle as you adjust to get the next shot. Basically, we don't want the audience to see a bunch of this. Let's say the call to worship is just finished. I, with the iPad, will select an appropriate transitional angle, at which time you'll want to take no more than 10 to 15 seconds to move on to the next shot, say the choir. I'll then switch the angle back to your camera. Here you can see the outcome of that process in real time. Let's say the prayer is next. While on the transitional angle, you'll be moving the camera to the pulpit. Take your time and try and leave it once it's basically in place. Here's another example going from the piano to the choir to the band and back to the pulpit. I find it easiest to adjust the camera in this order: horizontal movement, then vertical movement if needed, then zoom if needed. But how do you know what a shot needs? That's where framing comes in. Framing is getting as much of what you want to see in the shot as possible, while presenting a pleasing and mostly symmetrical picture, like a portrait. What we want to see generally are speakers centered in the shot while at the podium or pulpit, the whole choir with all limbs visible, and occasionally the piano or band areas. You can see me in the back adjusting the main camera angle before the pulpit shot. Here's an example of a well-framed shot. You can see my body is roughly centered and I've got a little bit of space above my head. It should be obvious what the subject of your shot is. Here's a poorly framed shot. Am I the subject or is the door? We want to avoid unused or negative space as much as possible. This will help the people watching on small screens, like their phones. This is perhaps the most important shot. For the pulpit shot, we want to avoid having the monitor in the shot. The glare can cause the camera to turn down the exposure or get darker, but you still want to center the subject and avoid too much negative space. You'll have to imagine the choir, but just try to get all of them in the shot, with a little extra room for boisterous movement and hand gestures. Here's another bad example. The subject isn't centered, and most of the screen is negative space. In these cases, you'll have to make some adjustments. You don't want to over-adjust. It's incredibly distracting when the camera is constantly moving, so try to leave well enough alone. If you must adjust, try and do it slowly and with as little movement as possible. Here the shot isn't centered. I start by adjusting in the horizontal axis first. That's all that's needed often. Good zooming is like adjusting. You want to be slow and deliberate. The zoom buttons are touch sensitive, so a very light touch will give you this effect. Zooming can also be an alternative to adjusting at times, particularly with shots of the choir, since they move around so much, or more people might come on the stage. This type of zooming is just vertigo-inducing. Except for when you're moving from shot to shot, zoom slowly, if at all. To review, you want to move quickly from shot to shot while I've got up transitional angles. Frame your shots by moving horizontally, then vertically if needed, then zoom if needed. Try not to touch it after. If adjustments are necessary, do them slowly and as infrequently as possible. Leave well enough alone. Finally, you'll need to be present throughout all of service, so do remember to check in. If you see me doing this, there is something that needs adjusting. Whether it's more to the right, more to the left, or perhaps down more. This means zoom out, most likely because someone or something important is cut out of the shot. And of course, this will mean zoom in. Lastly, here are a few examples of the order of service. Take a moment to pause the video and see how similar they all are. Right? Standard church. Looking at this first example, you'll see that you're basically going to be moving from the podium to the choir and then back to the podium or the pulpit over and over again. Once again, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video and for volunteering to run the camera during Sunday service. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in person. Thank you very much.